Hello, I'm Tammy Dorr, President and CEO of the Downtown Denver Partnership and co-founder of Denver Startup Week. This week is so important. It's important for us to come together and think big and boldly about our future, to dream and have visions for companies. These companies that are built today will be our economic strength, our economic drivers, and our economic saviors for the future of both our region, our state, and our country. We don't take it lightly. Come together during this week and make things happen. Before we dive in, we want to say a special thank you to our 2020 Denver Startup Week sponsors who make it all possible. Thanks to our title sponsors, Downtown Denver Partnership, JP Morgan Chase, Prologis, and Xero. And our track sponsors who have made all of the great content you're hearing today possible. Battery 621 and the Public Works, Capital One Cafe, Colorado Lending Source, Friday Help, Quizlet, Exactly, Zayo, and Zestful. Our headline event sponsors are bringing the excitement to all of you this week. Thank you to Wix, Kenzen, MAPR Agency, Obsidian HR, Kickstart Fund, Promontory Mortgage, Molson Coors, and Comcast. Finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors. They're all listed on the screen. Thank you for your support of Denver Startup Week. Now, make things happen.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben Data, CEO of Food Maven and one of the co-founders of Denver Startup Week. And I wanted to welcome you all to this incredible panel, The Climb, what it takes to make it to the top for today's entrepreneurs. How do you move up when you feel like your business is going down? For these 4 Denver entrepreneurs, they've been at the top and at the very bottom of life. Real life is crazier than fiction, which in the last 6 months, I think we've all seen on that. And hearing those stories of how you make it through, just what were even the hard times before, much less what we're all going through today. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to our moderator for this event. What he and Zenman have done for Denver Startup Week over the years has been incredible. I feel he's almost one of our unofficial organizing committee members. So Keith Roberts, thanks for everything you do and can't wait to see the panel. Thanks all.
Thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate it. And thanks for everybody to joining. I'm very excited about the 4 panelists that we have today. When Denver Startup Week came to me with the idea of this panel, they said, I want you to find people that have had the $100 million exits, the near-death experiences, the things that seem unsurmountable. So the first panel member that I thought of right away was Aaron Houghton. Aaron has founded 11 tech companies over his career, the largest of which he sold for $169 million before his 30th birthday. After his own experience with panic attacks, crippling anxiety, and even a cancer diagnosis, he was sure there must be a better way. Years of research, interviews, and hundreds of fellow founders led him to create his current project, the Founders First System, to help entrepreneurs stay mentally healthy, physically strong while building their companies. He frequently speaks on the impacts of stress and anxiety on entrepreneurs. Also, I have my good friend, Bennie Warren Fowler III. Bennie is a 6-year veteran of the NFL. He was a member of the 2016 Bronco Super Bowl 50 champions team, best remembered for hauling in a final pass from the soon Hall to Be famer Peyton Manning. Currently, Bennie is a member of the New Orleans Saints. Actually, last night, he recovered a fumble on a kickoff, which is pretty awesome if you're watching football. He has the distinction of having played and won in both the 100th Rose Bowl and 50th Super Bowl. So help me welcoming my good friend, Bennie. Bennie's interest in brain development stems in a large part from his purposed mental health health regimen to his prolonged professional career. Also, we have my good friend, Leora. Leora is amazing. She started her career as an activist in photography and is known and published around the world for projects such as the Feminist Studio, Attractive and Fat, the Expose Project, and Smash the Scale. She went on to co-found Overtone Hair Care, bootstrapping this destructive direct-to-consumer hair care company on her co-founder's kitchen table. Overtone is founded on the principles of radical inclusion, the intersection of feminism, and a short 6 years later is an industry leader and was just recognized as Allure's Best in Beauty, Essence's Best in Black Beauty, and Glamour's Reader's Choice. And then last but absolutely not least is somebody I've had a man crush on for several years, my good friend Ryan Avery. Ryan, at the age of 25, became the youngest world champion of public speaking in history, competing against more than 30,000 contestants from 116 countries to claim the 2012 World Championship for Toastmasters International. Ryan is also an Emmy Award-winning journalist, a 6-time world record holder, a 2-time best-selling author, and he lives here in Denver with his growing family. Amazed to have this panel here, and I just want to dig right into the questions. Right off the bat, contrary to popular belief, and Aaron, I'm going to start with you, just so you know with this, my friend. Entrepreneurship is not sexy, it's not easy, and oftentimes it's not even as satisfying as we hope. It feels like a pride-swallowing roller coaster that takes you from the top, where you feel like you finally made it, all the way to the bottom, where you just want to give up. This part of the experience we are all familiar with, and so I want to ask you all this question. Aaron, on your entrepreneurial journey, what was your highest high, the moment where you felt like everything was going to work out, and what was your lowest low, the absolute hardest moment when you just wanted to give up?
Well, thanks, Keith, for the setup, and just really excited to be here, and just proud to and grateful to be on a panel with a bunch of superstars like all you guys and gals. So thanks for having us. So my entrepreneurial journey, 11 companies over 20 years, all in the software space for the most part until my current company. And my highest high was probably 3 years in. I think a lot of entrepreneurs can probably relate to this moment when you've been kind of pushing the big, slow flywheel, kind of using the Jim Collins concept of you're just pushing it with these huge pushes and it's barely moving and it's barely moving and then it starts to move. And that moment for us was 3 years in. We bootstrapped a software business to about $3 million in annual revenue, just completely on our own. We're finding customers, we're walking around downtown and putting out sign-up sheets to see if people would sign up to join our business by walking into retailers. It was absolutely kind of an archaic strategy, but we were piecing it together piece by piece. And then we found digital advertising. We started investing in advertising and customers started coming back in, and someone said, you should calculate your customer economics. And we did, and it cost us $25 to acquire a customer that paid us $1,400. And we said, is that good? And everyone in the business world looked at us and was like, that's absolutely freaking unbelievable. You need to pour gas on this. We raised capital and we spent that money just in marketing with that simple money machine. And so that moment of acceleration and motivation or momentum, feeling that this thing that we've been pushing that had never been moving was starting to spin on its own, definitely the highest point. And for me, certainly lots of low points in the story of building the business, but the biggest one, and I think this surprises a lot of people, is my lowest point emotionally was 1 year after selling the company in 2013. So as Keith mentioned, we sold the company for over $100 million. I had a co-founder, we had some investors, but I had enough money in that moment to never work again. And probably for my children to never work again. It was kind of a disorienting place for a guy who grew up in a small town with middle-class family with two teachers as parents. But I'm in this place and I'm trying to navigate the new reality. I don't have my business anymore because we've sold it. I was out the day of the deal, and that was kind of what we planned. It felt great in the moment. And then I found myself just completely lost. My identity had become just my business. It had been whittled down from all these things I love to just being an entrepreneur. And then I sold my company and I felt like absolutely nobody. My depression was at its worst. My anxiety was at its worst. And that was my turning point. I had to look at myself and say, success and money and awards and accolades, like, it didn't work. It didn't make me happy. And it actually led me to my lowest point as an entrepreneur.
Wow. Thanks, Aaron. That is a very insightful share. Leora, I would love to go to you, my friend.
Sure. Again, thank you so much for having me, and I admire just everyone on this panel and Keith, you as well. It's just like a real honor to be included. So thank you for thinking with me. Highest high and lowest low. I was thinking about this as Aaron was speaking, and it's really hard to pinpoint that highest high because there's just so much that sort of like rolls into it. At least in my journey, it's like I remember the first person who ever bought a bottle of Overtone that we couldn't trace back to a friend, a family, a friend of a friend, a friend of a friend, a friend of a friend. It was, I looked at my co-founder and I was like, oh my God, we convinced a stranger to buy this from us. And then that was just such an exciting thing. It was like, it has legs. Oh my God, it walks. And then after that, sort of There have been so many other small victories, big and small victories alike. I think one of the bigger ones was Overtone is a color and conditioner. So it's all about color theory and being able to communicate that color theory, but also create a product that works with color theory. You know, draw on a construction paper with a marker and you sort of understand our product. So something that we had always toyed with the idea of producing was a purple hair color that you could apply over naturally brown hair and have it show up purple in the sun. But the color wheel economics don't really work out about it. Just because at the core, brown hair is yellow. It's like a dark yellow. And if you have a color wheel in front of you, you can see that yellow is the opposite of purple on the color wheel. So by nature, they cancel each other out. They produce more brown. So how could we ever produce a purple hair color for brown hair? But I knew deep inside, I was like, this is something that we've got to make. And at the end of 2018, I remember sitting on Megan's couch. It was Black Friday. You know, our team's working hard, sales are coming in, things are moving. And I look at her and I said, I want to make purple for brown hair. And I think I know how we can do it. And so we started talking through the color theory economics of it, and called our VP of R&D, and we're like, hey, so what do you think about this? You think you can throw that together for us? And she was like, yeah, I think that makes sense. Let me run a couple tests. And we were like, cool. So we want to launch this in like a month and a half from scratch. Let's just do it. And told our team, soothed their heart attack, you know, got everyone together and said, this is how we're going to get into 2019. This is what we're really going to power through. And we launched it, I think it was mid-January of 2019, and immediately it got picked up by major publications. Our team did a fantastic job getting the word out, and it almost instantly became the top seller on our site, and continues to be to right now. And I mean, our company's not very old, about 6 years old, so I mean, 1 year is a long time for us. So it's been exciting. We've been able to expand on that color line since then, but purple for brown was definitely a real highlight because it just felt impossible. But we figured out a way through, and that was really exciting. When I think about the lowest low, I mean, entrepreneurship in my world has just been such a roller coaster. You know, it's just like you ride those emotions so precariously, and it's really about surfing those waves. But if I had to pick out a particular moment where it really felt like everything was crashing, and I wasn't sure how we were going to get out just by sheer except for like just sheer determination. It was probably in just before we launched Purple for Brown in 2018. We had a number of rough things in the company sort of all at once. We had primed ourselves for some explosive growth earlier in the year. We had tried to bring on a couple of new vendors. We had done an aggressive hiring spree. We were really lining ourselves up because we were expecting some product to come through in the summer. And then out of nowhere, we had an HR crisis that took lawyers and nonsense to untangle, on top of a vendor, a critical vendor falling through, which meant that we were out of stock constantly. If you went on our site from maybe, I want to say like July of 2018 to September, we were pretty much out of stock of everything on the site. And we had all of these employees, and I'm like, I'm not going to break my commitment to these employees. I'm going to fight my ass off not to do layoffs. I'm going to work through this as much as I can, in the midst of sort of all of these other elements of business that we were trying to come together on. And I remember sitting up at my computer one night, you know, after sorting through a whole bunch of it, but needing to take like one final critical step that put a lot personally on the line. And I sat there, and, you know, my husband ended up taking me for a midnight walk around the block. And I was just like, I know I can do this. I see the way through. I just need you to trust me one more time. I need you to like put our stuff on the line, and I need you to trust me. And I know we can break through this. And, you know, toward the end of the year, we got the idea for Purple for Brown. 2019 took off like a rocket. We were ready to go. Sorry, Keith, you're muted.
Thank you, Leora. Benny, my friend, we'd love to hear your highest high and your lowest low on your journey.
Well, my journey as an NFL athlete has had a lot of highs and a lot of lows. I can start all over the place. I would say my highest high would be winning the Super Bowl in Denver, playing with the legendary Hall of Famer Peyton Manning and catching his last pass. And I would say that's the highest high because obviously it's the ultimate stage. The Super Bowl is the only event on that day. But playing with Peyton and him in trusting in me to catch his, final pass on that game-winning drive to seal that victory against the Carolina Panthers was amazing for me. I remember, flying back on the plane that next day, and I was just overcome with so much emotion. I was crying for like 30 minutes, and I've never really cried like that as an adult. And it was because of all the things, all the ups and downs that I had to go through. And I wear something on my wrist every day that reminds me that, and it says the prize is in the journey. It wasn't about winning the Super Bowl on that day. It was about everything that we went through to get to that point, everything that I had to overcome, being undrafted. The lifespan of an NFL athlete is only a couple years. If you're undrafted, it's not even a year. And I'm going into my 7th year, and I'm now playing with Drew Brees, another Hall of Famer. I've played with Peyton's brother, Eli, for 2 years. So I've been very blessed and very fortunate. So that would be my highest high. My lowest low would probably be after my 4th year in Denver. I was coming off my best season in Denver, and I was getting ready to hit free agency. So I'm like, it's time to get paid. It's time to get some money. And the Chicago Bears signed me. So I'm now playing in the city that my mom is living in. So everything seems to be going the right way. And we get through training camp and we're getting ready to start the season. And then I get a call from the general manager and letting me know that they were going to release me. And right then and there, I was embarrassed. I was angry. I was sad. But then that uncertainty and that doubt started to creep in, because I had never been in that point. I had never had that happen in my life where I'm without a job and I'm not playing football. So for the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'm working out. No teams are really calling. And then that's when I get the call from the New York Giants. And I go on to have 2 of my most consistent years catching the football and having the most fun. And that's because I had got put on the sideline. Sometimes in life, we get put on the sideline. Life puts us on the sideline to give us a different view and a different perspective. And so many great things came out of that. I got engaged. I got my baby boy, Simba. I'm a dog dad. I'm a very proud dog dad. I love my dog. So many different things. And then also my book coming out in January, and also me doing high performance coaching and helping people understand the importance of having that vision and being connected to your vision so that you don't get off track. In life, you're going to get knocked off course. And how do you get back? How do you get back on the road? And that's why I created my online course, the GPS method, which stands for goal setting plus perseverance equals success. So whenever you do get knocked off and life is undefeated, we're going to run into obstacles and different types of things. There are certain tools and habits that everybody on this panel I know uses, which is goal setting, hard work, handling adversity, handling success, just to get you back on track. And that's why I want to coach. And I heard Peyton say this one time. He said, he told one of our coaches, like, he said, coach me hard. Don't coach me because how talented I am, but coach me like everybody else. And I feel like, we all need a coach, and I have a life coach as well as obviously my football coaches, but that's where, my passion came from. It came from that lowest moment. And I feel like everybody on this panel and everybody in life, right on that end of all that adversity is that success. And just from the first couple stories that I heard. So that's a little bit about my highest high and my lowest low.
Thanks, Benny. That's amazing. I love the sidelining, being inspirational to work harder. And I love that coach me hard. That's going to stay with me. All right. I hate this is weird to say, last but not least, when you've got 6 world records, best-selling article, world's best speaker. But last but not least, Ryan, can you tell me your high and low and how you overcame that low?
Yeah. The best lesson I learned last year is this. You are allowed to have your worst day and the best day in the same day, okay? And what happens is sometimes when we're living this positive lifestyle, we tend to forget and say, oh no, we can't look at the bad, everything's good, right? Or when we're in a really bad spot, it's hard to look at those good. But I feel like I get high fives and punched in the gut every single day with my business. And it's an important feeling because I remember last year, I get off one of the biggest stages of my life. I then get an email that I just landed one of the biggest contracts of my life. My dad calls me and tells me that my grandmother randomly died. And so here I am, I'm like in this exciting moment. And then like, I'm not in the city with my family. I'm in somewhere else because of my job, and my grandmother dies. And then on the same day, my dog dies. So it's like, here is all of this excitement, and here is all of this like exit and leaving. And it was this like really, I remember going out to breakfast the next day and being like, I'll take the bacon and the eggs. And the woman who was waiting on me was like, oh, okay. And she just like did not want to wait on me because I was crying so much. But I realized like that is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is being able to deal with the high fives and the punches in the gut at the exact same time. I can tell you endless stories of world records that I have broken and world records that I have never broken because of certain things that happen. If you want to know pain, try to get a park permit in New York City on 9/11. It is insanity, okay? But there's so many things that we get put in front of, and we get where we say, all right, are we going to continue to do this? And here's the thing that really helps me understand for like failure or success or whatever you want to define it as, your highest high or your lowest low. Defining the difference between passion versus purpose. And here's how I can continue, whether I get hit or whether I get a high five, is because what passion is a barely uncontrollable emotion. By definition, that's what it means. Y'all, I have like 800 emotions a day. Okay, so if I follow passions, I'm gonna be all over the place. But as entrepreneurs, I have purpose, and purpose by definition means the reason for which it is done. And when we know our purpose, whether you have the highest high or you have the lowest low, you are still on the right track, because it's not going to throw you off of, I need to go this way because everyone's telling me to write this book, or I need to go this way because people telling me I'm wrong. I know my purpose. So I've had outrageous highs, outrageous lows, but I've also had a really cool entrepreneurial journey so far.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I love that you can actually have those in the same day. That's actually something I'd never even fathomed before, but awesome. Thank you for your share, Ryan. Next, I want to set the stage. You know, every company's different. Everybody's entrepreneurial individual experience is different as a result of that. We know the struggles founders face are often the same, right? Brutal hours, struggling with stress, anxiety, shunning everything outside of your work life, and even neglecting your health and things that used to matter, or even neglecting your loved ones. Leora, I'm going to start with you because you are already nodding with this question. If you picture yourself as a first-time entrepreneur that's watching this panel, if you could go back in time knowing what you know now, what is the one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Oh my God. Come on, Keith.
You were nodding.
I know. Well, you said something else that really resonated with me, which is like what I was really nodding to I was really reflecting on was this concept of it's not just the long hours, it's like these sacrifices that you make. And if I had to go back in time and sort of give that one piece of advice, you know, I think it would be, can I give two pieces? Is that allowed? One is really short. Okay. No is a full credit answer. Just, you don't have to have a reason. If it's wrong, it's just, no, thanks. See you next time. No is full credit answer. And then the other one is really more around like that element of sacrifice. And when Megan and I started the company, I was in my early to mid 20s. I had been doing freelance photography. I graduated in 2010, so it's not like I had an economy to like work within. So I'd always sort of made my own pieces for the world, working multiple part-time jobs and doing photography on the side. And I have a degree in photography, so it was like always the thing that I was pursuing. I've been doing it for forever, and it was more of a part of my way of life than I think I realized. And so I had my own photography business when we started the company. After the first 2 years, I phased it out. I finished up my jobs and I shut down that business so I could focus full time on Overtone. And I was still shooting for Overtone. You know, we would, you know, do whatever photography needed to be done for the first several years. But then I sort of hit this wall, and I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to have an opportunity to go do a photo retreat with one of my all-time most admired photographers. And it was something that I had never considered I would be able to do. Just because, you know, the price or the time commitment always felt so out of reach, and having the opportunity in itself was a big win. And so I was able to go and get there, and it was shooting at least twice a day, followed by all night editing sessions. And it was just like absolute immersive behavior in something that I hadn't been immersed in a long time. And by the end of the course, one of the organizers sat with me and he's like, hey, so I hope you thought that this was worth it. I hope you felt like it was worth your time and worth your money. And I just started bawling. And like, I'm a crier by nature, so it's not unusual to see me cry. But I was so moved by the experience because I really hadn't understood what I had given up and what I had lost. And like when you're young, or even when you're just like extremely focused, and you're really just like gunning toward that thing, and all of your energy goes toward that thing, you just lose, or I lost, I shouldn't speak for other folks, but like I lost track of the things that I was sacrificing until I refound them. And then I realized like what big a piece of myself I had really lost in that sacrifice. And so since that moment, I committed to photographing more regularly, no matter what. So it didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter if it was a consistent project. It didn't matter if it had meaning or had a lot of meaning. It just had to get done. And so since that moment, I've been way more consistent in my photography, and as a result, way more together as a human being, and way more like centered in my body and in my experience with the world.
That's awesome, Leora. I love that. I love the what are you giving up and thinking about that. And I really appreciate that you're committed to doing your passion to stay charged. Ryan, let us go to you, my friend. If you could picture yourself as a first-time entrepreneur, what would you go back and tell yourself, young Ryan Avery?
Mine is, I thought being a business owner meant I had to be very serious. And so I was so serious all the time. And like, I took business seriously. I would have way more fun. I would have way more fun. I would be me, right? Like I am a weird, quirky dude. And for that first couple of years, like if you look back at my photos, I'm like wearing a suit and I'm like, hi, professional speaker. And it's just like, I was so serious. And I would have given my advice to be like, Ryan, be you, man, have fun, like enjoy this ride. It's so fun to be an entrepreneur. So if you can have more fun and you don't have to take yourself seriously. And here's what happened. When I started having more fun, guess what? My business grew. I started attracting people who wanted to hire me. And I like to work with those types of people. I wasn't working with people who I didn't really like to work with. It was just so refreshing to know that you can run a business and still have fun. That would be my advice.
I love that. Be you. Benny, what advice would you go back and give yourself?
Well, just because I just started maybe a couple of years ago being an entrepreneur, what I would tell myself is to focus on the process and to enjoy it. When I first got into the business, like being an entrepreneur and doing high performance coaching, I was just thinking about all the money that I could make instead of actually attracting the right clients, like Ryan said. I don't want to just, well, I need this many clients so I can make this amount of money. No, let me get the right clients who want to work with me. So that I would focus on the process. And if I could tie it back into football terms or, sports terms, like we have a 17-week season. We can't win all 17 games in week 1. So we just got to take it one day at a time. We just got to win Wednesday. We got to win Thursday, win Friday, win Saturday, and then we'll have our performance on Sunday. And then understand that the importance of winning is a progression, losing is a lesson. Winning is a progression, losing is a lesson. There's a lot of learning going on and just attracting the right clients. But ultimately, it comes down to focusing on the process, not the outcome. Sometimes we're just focused on how much money we can make and how fast we can make it instead of focusing on the process. And once we focus on the process, the money's going to come. So when you're an entrepreneur, that's what you get into it for. You want that freedom, that choice, but focus on the process and actually enjoying the process of what you're doing. And that goes back to what Ryan said earlier, that purpose. When you know that purpose, it's easy to stay up late or get up early. But that's all purpose to me is all process driven. It's about how can I get better every single day.
Thank you, Benny. Aaron, guess who's next?
Yeah, the thing that I wish someone would have told me when I was starting out was to not assume that my mental health was an unlimited resource. Partly maybe because I was in my 20s, but partly also because I was, an optimistic entrepreneur like we all are. It takes a certain type of mind, I think, to be confident enough to want to start a business. And we know the statistics around entrepreneurs. The research is only a couple of years old at this point. It's very fresh that entrepreneurs are 3 times more likely to have substance abuse issues, 2 times more likely to have depression issues. 72% of entrepreneurs face lifetime mental health issues. We're 6x more likely to have ADHD and 11x more likely, can anybody guess it? 11x more likely to be bipolar. And, it takes them maybe those moments of mania to get us excited and get us started. And so I think the reality that I've come to understand as an entrepreneur, this concept of those high highs and low lows, the best day and the worst day in the same day. I love that, Ryan. Is that unfortunately our mental health is kind of a commodity that we trade into what we do as entrepreneurs. It sounds kind of terrible when you think about it that way, but that's the reality that I've come to understand, which is that I can push really, really hard and basically abuse myself and increase the chances that I'll be successful in the short term, but massively decrease the chances that I'll be successful in the long term because my mind is just not going to make it. My energy level is not going to make it. And these underlying issues that many of us as entrepreneurs face, folks listening on this call maybe have seen the cracks in themselves as well. I ignored these things and swept them under the carpet for years because I didn't want to think about them. But, those moments of trouble sleeping, maybe saying, I'll have a beer or two just to fall asleep tonight because I need to calm my mind down. Inability to focus, making bad decisions, or even in the office, just responding with anger and emotion when we need to be calm in the moment. And those things are the early, at least for me, were the early warning signs. What I didn't realize was that these were real issues. And also, I think I was very pessimistic about it. I thought that these were just problems and weaknesses that I had as an entrepreneur and nobody else had them. And over the years, I started to understand that these are actually very common problems. Almost all entrepreneurs are experiencing them in the moment. And there's actually a lot of solutions to these problems in traditional mental health and just in health and wellness outside of that as well. And so that would be my big takeaway. I eventually turned this into a process where I started tracking my own physical and mental health metrics in the same way that you might check your blood pressure every couple of years. I measure my mental health using 5 factors that I record every day, which is my energy, my level of calm, my mood, highest and low points, time spent on my identity, and my overall level of happiness. And I've done this for over 1,000 days in a row. I'm probably at 1,200 or 1,300 now. And it's just been those guiding rails on my life to make sure I don't go too far this direction and too far this direction, and that I can stay healthy and happy as an entrepreneur.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. That is amazing. 1,200 days is pretty impressive, my friend. Nice character. All right. Next one, I'm going to set the stage. Entrepreneurs have existed since before recorded history. Through the years, sectors change, business models change. The manner in which we build and conduct business looks incredibly different from one decade to the next. But the entrepreneurial experience remains largely unchanged. Technology, rapid innovation, constantly shifting nature of a global marketplace have a big influence on how we live our lives. So I'd like you to answer the next question in 2 parts. And Ryan, I'm going to put you on the spot. Here's the question.
Okay.
What is the biggest challenge entrepreneurs face today? And within the constant changes we try to navigate economically and technologically, how can we prepare ourselves for this challenge?
So the biggest challenge, in my opinion, is what happens in times of change or chaos or uncertainty. Hello, 2020. What happens is people imitate. So they see what other people are doing in the industry, and most or some people, what they do is they say, well, if they're doing that, we need to do that too. So they flock to imitation. But what the leader does, what the entrepreneur does, is instead of imitation, they focus on innovation. And literally that is by definition what change is innovation, right? So they take this time of change, they take this time of chaos, and they innovate. So the most important thing right now is to see how you can innovate your industry, how you can change. Every great leader we've ever had, every great entrepreneur from Ford's to Oprah to Disney, they had an uncertainty, they had craziness happen, they had something going on in society or in the world, and what they do, they said, I'm going to take this opportunity and I'm going to create this or do this. So really checking yourself to say, am I imitating, or am I innovating? And one of the ways that we do that is we create what's called our 10-10-10 list. And that means we look at that where we look at 10, I'm in the consulting world and speaking world. So we look at 10 speakers who were the, 10 speakers who are the, and 10 speakers who we believe will be the in the industry one day. And all we do is about once a month, we look at their social media, we buy their products, we review their books, and as a team, we talk about them to see what they haven't said or what they should have said. And we look at ways how we can innovate and change the industry in the speaking world. And that's a really helpful way for us. So that's the first part of your question is, here's what we should be focusing on, innovation. And then your second part question is what, Keith? Or did I answer it? What's the second part to the question? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
I think you answered it because it was how we would prepare ourselves for this point in history.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be the last time business is going to change. Okay, this isn't going to be the last time something new happens. So buckle up, right? That's part of the journey. Something's going to happen. Here's one question though that I will say, and this might not be related to it, but it's really changed my life. One of my wife's business coaches, and I did not like this question at first because COVID's really impacted my life in a big way. Dissolved my business at first. My sister got COVID, my aunt got COVID, and it really has affected me a lot. And she asked my wife, what do you need to do to make COVID the best thing that's ever happened to your business? And I was just like, no, at first. And then I was like, okay, I like that. I like that. And so one other component of the thing that we need to really do is, and it goes back to Aaron's mental health, and I completely agree with what Aaron is saying, is what an entrepreneur does is they're going to stay positive in this time. They're going to say, we're going to get through it. It's going to be fine. Let's stay positive. What the entrepreneur does is we stay creative. And that's what we need right now. I don't need a positive leader. I don't need a positive message. What I need are creative entrepreneurs to fix the problems that are really facing our society right now. And if we can stay innovative and if we can stay creative, the doors open up for us. So that would be my advice for that question, Keith.
Amazing, man. I love that. The innovating over imitating is something I'm going to take away for this talk. Leora, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I ended up grabbing my notebook and writing some stuff down. Thanks for that, Ryan. I just wanted to also take a moment to just acknowledge, every time Aaron talks about his mental health journey and sort of the importance of that among entrepreneurs, there's just nothing more important, I think. And I so admire and appreciate his emphasis on that. To answer your question, Keith, the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs face today and sort of historically and forever and always, amen, and then how to prepare yourself for this particular moment in history. When I think back at the hardest moments, they always sort of boil down to three key concepts, and we've included them in the core values at Overtone because I think they're really important to me and Megan, but I think they're also can be held by lots of people, and we call them different things in the company, but for the purposes here, it's about knowing yourself. So we call that intentional introspection. Who are you? What do you bring to the table? What are you bad at? What are you good at? When somebody tells me I'm bad at math, it doesn't hurt me. I know I'm bad at math. Like, this is something that I own and accept about myself. So know who you are. And then that's really hard to do because you change over time, you grow, you learn, you shift, you develop. But keeping tabs on that internal pulse is critical for the next two. Because the next two go hand in hand. It's communication and bravery. Something that I struggle with is conflict. Like I don't know many people except for maybe litigation lawyers that really relish that opportunity to really dig in. But that's not who I am. But learning how to communicate in a way where you are honest, where you don't betray yourself, where you don't hide your emotions, and the other person has clarity in what you're saying, so you have understanding between parties, it's hard, but it's mission critical. If you don't know yourself well enough to think about how you're going to communicate a message, or the fact that you need to communicate, or that you need something to happen from someone else, or you have to share your vision, or you really need to make sure that, one, you're brave enough to do it, because communication at that level is hard, because it means that you have to be really vulnerable, you have to put it out on the table, and you need to be understood. You can't flatter your way into somebody's seeing you for who you are. You have to be like, this is what I think, and I mean it intentionally. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And if you don't, let me try again, and let's work together until our communication happens. And I really think that you can't do that without those three things, because it is legitimately challenging to have a hard conversation with somebody and having them quickly and effectively and in a place where even if the conversation is hard and the topic is challenging, you can sort of walk away going like, okay, even if that wasn't an enjoyable conversation, it was one that needed to be had, and we can sort of move forward together from here. So I think those three things sort of come up no matter what challenge I'm facing. All three of them are pretty much 100% required at all times. I'm not saying that like I'm always a brave person. That's, you know, something that I have to really lean into as like a demand of myself, but it is really critical. And then how we can prepare ourselves for this point in history. I admire a lot also what Ryan said about being creative as opposed to being innovative. I think that's really important. It's thinking your way through a problem and arguing with yourself, like, okay, so this is my automatic answer. What's the answer that like I wouldn't, what's my hot take on my own idea? Like, I don't know, let's think through it. And 2020 has been it's been like, I've never surfed, but for some reason, this is an analogy that always comes up for me. It's surfing. It's like, do you want to be at the bottom of the wave, or are you going to surf the wave? And sometimes we don't get a choice on where we are, and sometimes emotionally we're at the bottom, and sometimes, you know, career-wise we're at the top, and it's about like kind of finding that balance. So can you know yourself? Can you be brave? And can you have an honest and clear communication with somebody where you're both heard and understood, and you don't betray yourself or your intentions? And I think that those things can help push things further along in a positive direction, almost more than any other skill I've picked up.
Thank you. Aaron, I'm going to come to you next, and Benny, close with you. Aaron, when you finish, a couple people in the chat have asked if you would put those 5 metrics. So would you mind putting that in the chat after you answer this question, my friend?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
thank you.
Sure. Yeah, for me, the managing volatility. So if you think about the world of entrepreneurship, it's like this big, crazy horse race, right? Where we know it's high risk. We know a lot of people put money in and some people make money. Most people lose. But unlike horse racing, in the crazy world of entrepreneurship, at the end of the race, the entrepreneur gets shot. Think about it. Everyone else has volatility on their side. Investors need volatility. That's why they have a big portfolio. They want to crank up the volatility. I'm borrowing this concept from my good friend Eric Severinghaus, by the way, who's writing a book called Scale Your Everest about mountaineering and entrepreneurship. And I love this analogy around volatility, that the only person that loses in a highly volatile entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial world is the entrepreneur. Because statistically, we're the 95% that don't succeed. Just statistically, that's how it works out. Only 5% of companies have good, positive exits. And so living in that world of volatility and managing our minds inside of that volatility, to me, is the biggest challenge of entrepreneurship. Everyone else is incentivized to crank up the risk, and we're the only people really representing our side of the equation, which is, let's try and manage ourselves, manage risk to a point that we can be successful in the end. Even the broader world and people that rely on us for innovation kind of are on the volatility side as well, right? If 100 clean tech companies build electric cars, society and the environment doesn't really care which one wins, one will win. But 95% of the entrepreneurs behind those companies will fail. And so we've got to look out for ourselves, and we've just got to look out for each other. So bringing entrepreneurs together to talk about what this feels like, those high highs and those low lows, and how we manage that personally, I think is the critical challenge for entrepreneurship, for entrepreneurs, and for innovation in the future of our world.
Amazing. Thank you, sir. All right, Benny, you, and then I have a follow-up question. If anybody wants to start putting questions in the chat, please feel free, and I'll pepper them to the people after this. Benny, there's already a question for you. But first, biggest challenge entrepreneurs have always faced and still face today?
I think the biggest challenge that entrepreneurs face is staying connected to that vision, especially with those low lows. You know, how can you stay connected to that vision? Is your vision, are your goals connected to your vision? Are your values connected to your goals? So just staying connected to that vision. Like if you think about somebody who's getting ready to get married and they want to lose some weight before their wedding, because they know what that vision looks like, what they're going to feel like on that day, it's easier for them to lose that weight. But they might put that weight back on after the wedding because there is nowhere else to go after that. Mm-hmm. So entrepreneurs or anybody in business, sports, relationships, what do you want your life to look like in the next 5 years? What's that vision? And then work your goals back from that, staying connected to that vision and connected to that process is what I always think the challenge is, just because it's human nature to get complacent, especially when you do have those high highs. Oh, I can just relax today. Or those low lows. I'm just going to stay in bed today and have the poor me's. No, what's the vision? What are you connected to? So if you have that wedding plan vision for your life or your business, that if you have that, you won't, the challenges will always be there, but you'll be able to respond to that. But I think the challenges for entrepreneurs always is staying connected to that vision. Sometimes you can only see those negative things. So that, ties back to the purpose. It ties back to your mental health. It ties back to everything that we've been talking about today, which is really just understanding the importance of who you are and what you really want and sticking with that. And then something that could change or that, to help people adapt is, in times like this, we always ask for more time. For 3 or 4 months, we were at home. So you had that time. So to whom much is given, much is expected. If we have these great ideas, like Ryan was saying, you have all this creativity. Don't try to be like somebody else. Usually when you're walking around your house after a long day, you're like, I wish I had more time. Well, we had it, and we still do have some time. So it's time to step outside the box and be creative and have a growth mindset and understand the importance that there will be some failure, but there will be some triumph. So there's so many different things. I think we all have all different types of answers.
Amazing. And the next question is for you, Benny, but first I want to share this. Joel said the energy and enthusiasm of all panelists is intoxicating. So exceptional job, everybody. And Benny, I hope this is the answer because we've talked about this before and the story you shared with me was amazing. If not, I'm going to ask you about this story later. But Benny, what is the biggest takeaway you learned playing with Peyton Manning that you still embody today and use outside the game of football?
Being able to adapt, especially in certain situations, or just really understanding that there will be problems that occur. Like everything is not just going to go perfect. So on Sunday, we go out and we play, and then on Monday he'll have the third string quarterback watch the game tape, the TV copy of the tape, to see what signals were on the TV copy and what code words were on the TV copy. So on that Wednesday and Thursday, we'll change them so no team can actually pick up. So just being ready for those problems that will occur. Sometimes when we have these goals, like everything is going to go perfect. The way I set goals now is that I have my goal. I have the 3 things that will get me to that goal, but I have 3 main obstacles that could stop me from getting to that goal. Because sometimes we always think it's just going to be like some perfect way to get there, and it's not. You have to be ready for the obstacles because that's just how life is. So that's one of the things that I will always take from him is that, I'm preparing for a great day, but I'm ready for these obstacles and I'm ready to adapt. And, 2020 is the year of adapting. We have to adapt. As a public speaker, Ryan's had to adapt into an environment like this where you can still give speeches. His job is not going to change. He just has to pivot and do something different. And we're always going to have to do something different. That's just kind of how life is. It's being ready to pivot. So that's kind of what I took from Peyton.
Yeah. Okay. Bonus. Because the other thing that you shared with me that resonated that I think was really powerful was he knew everybody's name, from the janitor on up, and he treated everybody the same. And that's something that
he knew everybody's name. That was super big on him. It didn't matter if it was the cook, the guy cleaning the toilets. He knew everybody by their first name, and he would sit down and have lunch with different people every single day, because if you're going to win a championship or if you're going to have a successful business, you're only going to be as good as your weakest link. So if you're the boss and you're not having dinner or lunch or whatever with, your lowest so-called employee, then they're not going to give you their full effort. The reason why I would run through a wall for Peyton is because the way he treated me on the first day. He came up to me and he introduced himself. Obviously, I know who he is, but him introducing himself to me made me feel a part of that team.
Yeah. I think the true judge of a person is how they treat someone that can do nothing for them. Leora, there's a question for you, and that is, you mentioned radical inclusion. Can you explain a little bit more about what is radical inclusion?
Sure. Radical inclusion is a way that we talk about intersectional feminism. So I'll explain sort of both of them and how they play into what we've always done at Overtone, or really I should say what we endeavor to do, because it's a moving target. It's sort of always ahead of us, and we're doing the best we can to chase that down. So if I were to just briefly describe what intersectional feminism is, because I think it's a more oft-heard term combination now, but still there's a little bit of mystery around it. And it's always best to just say, like, here's my meaning of when I say intersectional feminism, what I mean. So intersectional feminism is the idea that it's not just gender that sets us apart in the world and makes our experiences different, but it's the intersections of all parts of our identity. So traditionally, I think in the past, when I was growing up, I would hear a lot about like the differences between men and women and their opportunities, or how they're perceived by society. And in my life, sexism has affected me, and I felt the sting and sort of the arm's length of what that means. But it's more than that. So if I take that outside of just the gender binary and I say, okay, if I look at all of the intersections of my identity and I say, I'm a young woman, so my youth sort of lets me into some rooms and keeps me out of others as far as how seriously people will take me. I'm a woman, so that lets me into some. I'm a cisgendered woman, so I align with the identity, with the gender I was given at birth. So that puts me out and keeps me out of certain rooms, gets me in and keeps me out. I'm a Jewish woman, so depending on the community I'm in, that either sort of gives me connection with folks, or people feel less connected with me because we don't share traditions, and in the US, typically underplayed. I'm a bisexual woman and I'm married to a cisgendered man, so those parts of my identity are sort of harbored here and there, and depending on where I am, those things can endanger me or bring me connection. So sort of all of those different pieces of my identity, not even counting how I was raised geographically, were my parents still together, those all impact my energy and my ability to move through the world. So all of those things being what they are, when we think about, especially in the beauty industry, which is my industry, and we think about the concept of marketing and how marketing's traditionally worked, is we set up this sort of like aspirational character, and we say this person is who we're going to say everyone who buys our product should aspire to be. Intersectional feminism can sort of consider that and go like, okay, well, like we have like one aspirational character that's really exclusive, that really doesn't sort of bring together all of the different parts of who we are, and especially in an industry that's dedicated to the concept of self-expression, which for me, the beauty industry has always been a center of creativity. It's like, why aren't we actively seeking out ways to change this aspirational character? Because traditionally, aspirational characters in beauty have been like young white women who are thin. And so if we're only aspiring to be that, we miss out both on creating equity in the industry and like also bringing everybody along with us for the ride and including them that way. And also, we're just not being creative, to Ryan's point. Like if we're only ever aspiring toward the same thing, nothing in the world can change. I'm a big believer in the fundamental sort of concept that representation is one of the most important things in changing perceptions and creating more equality and equity in the world. And if we're not chasing down those things actively all of the time and asking who's not in the room that should be in the room, whose voice am I listening to, what story is this, and is it coming from the person who experienced it? Am I making decisions for people that that I'm not seeking their opinion? And that's all like a very big part of Overtone's core identity. So when I say that the company was founded on the idea of radical inclusion, what I mean very literally is I sat down with my co-founder on minute one and I said, I'm not doing this unless you can promise me that I'm never photoshopping a body, that we're using an influencer platform to reach as many communities as we can that we can't reach ourselves, and sort of getting them to try our product and give us feedback and really work in that way. And unless we can, really chase down that inclusion and representation goal without altering people's bodies, I'm not in it. And she looked at me, she's like, yeah, okay, we can do that. And I'm like, great. So here we are. What that means sort of esoterically as Overtone has grown is that we've had to really thoughtfully consider and reach out intentionally to voices that we don't hear on a regular basis or that we don't have immediate access to. The voice I have the most immediate access to is my own and my partner's. And while we have very different backgrounds, we are similar. So we have to really intentionally think about like, okay, whose voice isn't in the room? Whose opinion haven't I considered? Who hasn't shown up on our influencer feed in a while? And sort of continuing to do these audits and self-considerations and introspection around that.
Thank you, Laura. I think that our current politics could learn a lot from the way you run your company and seeking out others' opinions. So that's this is such an amazing part of Overtone, and I love that about you. I've got
Keith, I'm sorry if I could just like add
something.
Yeah,
Go.
Thank you. I'm really glad though that there are so many different ways to do activism, and my part of representation in business is just one of them. And like, it's one piece of like a really broad puzzle. So I embrace the fact that I attack this one piece, and I attack it with a lot of my passion. And I'm grateful for everyone else doing the work around me in different ways.
Awesome. We have 1 minute left, and I've got questions for Aaron and Ryan, so you guys have to be efficient. Ryan, what is the next world record you are going to set?
We have a lot of them. One of them, though, that's coming up in Denver is we will be breaking the world record in February for Black History Month of the longest public speaking marathon for a team of 2. And my partner and I will be speaking, he will be speaking on racial injustice and how we can have those conversations. And I will be teaching people how they can speak about it. So he'll be teaching about the content, and I'll be showing people how they can stand up and speak up. And it's for youth to be able to speak up, stand up, and stay up for causes you care about. So if you want to know any more about that, it's breakinghistory.tv. And that's where all of our records are, breakinghistory.tv.
Amazing. And I think that's going to be a Battery, which is one of the Startup Week sponsors, right? Love those guys. Yeah. Aaron, the many questions for you, but the one that I think would be the most helpful, and you've touched on it, but it's come up, is how did you have $100 million and not be happy?
Yeah, I guess it's the really sad answer. No one wants to hear that money doesn't make you happy. Yeah. For me, here's the behind the scenes of what happened in 30 seconds or less, which is that the patterns that I had to create in myself in order to be successful, or I don't know whether I had to, but I did, because I did it the wrong way. Treating myself poorly, putting myself last, putting my team ahead of me, which is great and sounds great, but when you always put yourself last, then you have nothing left to give your team. And so the bad habits that I built became patterns. They became part of my brain. They became who I was in that moment. And it actually caused my company in some ways to be successful. And it caused me to be unsuccessful as a person because I put everything into the business. So when the business was sold, sure, some questions around finances and how I'm going to pay my mortgage next month went away. But so many new challenges came about. I felt this great pressure of, if I don't live every single moment of the rest of my life in the best way possible, then I'm a miserable failure because I'm no longer resource constrained on the side. And then I thought, oh crap, I don't even know what I like to do anymore. How will I even do that tomorrow?
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Everybody, Bennie, Aaron, Leora, Ryan, it has been an honor to host the 4 of you. I think you are a gaggle of some of the most incredible individuals Colorado has to offer. Denver Startup Week, thank you so much. Thank you to our sponsors. Everybody have a wonderful day. I do believe it's being recorded. I'm not 100% sure, but cheers, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.